All right, talking football, Senior Bowl day 1. Got our core 4 here. We got Justin Penik of Talking Giants, the football grump of the Just Giants podcast, and then Robert Schmitz of Windy City Gridiron covering the Bears, and myself, Bobby Skinner. Gonna just kind of talk through it. We're trying to put together an outline. Let's just let it flow. Hit 20 to 25 minutes. Start with the national team, which is more of the northern teams. Then we'll hit the American guys. And I watched mostly O-line, D-line today, and Grump was with me watching that. Who was like the number one offensive lineman for you today? Was it Zion Johnson as well?
It might have been, yeah. I was mostly intrigued to see what the center prospects were going to be like, because most of these guys, I don't think any of them played center at all in college.
Zion snapped a little bit. Cole Strange, they kind of just like, okay, you're our center. Who we were both impressed with him.
Yeah.
They don't like have a center on the roster, and I think Cole Strange moving to that put him in with the ones, and he did really well. Like he was stalemating guys in one-on-ones, which is a really hard drill for centers for the offensive line, and he did a good job. But Zion Johnson just looked like, okay, this guy is the best pro on this side on the national team.
Zion Johnson also has legs that make him look like he's an NFL player that's here to coach these guys. He really does not look like he belongs here. So he looks insane, and he looked very good snapping the ball as well. Cole Strange, it's a huge step up. He was played at Chattanooga, so I was really interested to see how he would fare among these other guys from bigger schools, and he looked really, really good, actually. I was impressed.
With Zion, it's because they were working with the Jets who run a wide zone, and he was fitting in everything. And I think that was a note on him when I came in. It was like he's gonna fit. He's gonna play really well in each scheme, and he did a good job today. Where as a Giants fan, and I'm sure you guys, the Bears need a little offensive line help.
Everybody does.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is a second-round guy you could get behind, where you kind of get into a little danger of like, oh, we can get this guy second round. Zion Johnson, if he falls, that's a guy you can feel good at on the offensive line.
What about tackles?
Trevor Penik from Northern Iowa. I forgot to write his notes.
Yeah.
He's the guy I'm watching the most because, have you watched Trevor Penik at all?
A little bit. You got me on DBs and linebackers, so I've got a lot of those names on lock. But the offensive tackles, I've been like, Bobby's got it.
Well, he's nasty.
Yeah, he hasn't played against top competition at Northern Iowa, and here's the one I was watching the most. And I thought he had a good day, not a great day. With him, it's like the 1, 2, 3, he's good, and then sometimes he just can't sustain that block. He got beat around the edge a couple times, but in one-on-ones, I thought he did a good job, and he is nasty, like Justin said. He was throwing dudes, pinning and pulling and throwing guys on the ground.
Yeah. Maybe unnecessarily at times today.
But I like that.
But you want to know what? Coming from a small school, and I think were you talking about he's maybe a little bit undersized. Coming from that small school, I think maybe you need to show it a little bit at the Senior Bowl this week. And
it's a weird situation at these All-Star games where it's not just your opponent, where it's like, I don't care anything about this guy. I will go at him all day. I don't care if he hates me. Where this is you shining out for the NFL. You don't want to go too crazy and be an asshole, but you want to have that nastiness, but also like you're practicing. It's a practice. It's not a game of your teammates. So to show that without pushing it to pushing the limits too much was good out of him.
Oh, sure. And speaking of big moments, let's talk about big players, right? Because we're talking offensive tackle. How can we not bring up it's Falele, right? Somebody's got the name better than I do, but the Wyoming tackle, 375 plus pounds at weigh-in, just a mammoth of a human being out there. When they went to 11 on 11, trust me, I've been spending the whole day watching the DBs and wide receivers, but my eyes went right to him. What'd you guys think of him?
Well, how did he do on 11-on-11? Because the one-on-ones he kind of struggled, but I feel like he's one of those one-on-ones always are going to favor the defense than the O-line, right. D-line, and he struggled in that. There was the first rep against Myjai Sanders, who I think was the big winner of the day on the trenches in the O-line, D-line, and Myjai Sanders gets around the edge, not like a total win, but definitely beat him on that rep. Not a dominant rep, but beat him on that rep. And so Sanders, who might be a little, Falele, or however you pronounce his name, out of Minnesota, he kind of overset, and Myjai just kind of bull rushed and spun through him and put him on his ass, which was, I think the biggest, just one play of the day. But in an 11-on-11s, where I think a player like him fits better, where you're not going to be vertical setting. He's never going to be a guy who's going to be put in a bunch of vertical sets. He's going to play right tackle, and I thought he did good. And in just warm-ups and individual drills, he's 387 pounds. He doesn't look like he's overweight.
Not at all.
He looks like he's lean. He just looks like a big dude. I wouldn't think he weighs 300. He looks like he weighs 355, 360.
Exactly what I said.
Yeah.
I don't want to skip too far ahead because I know we've got a whole nother practice to cover, but Kenning of Kentucky, very similar in that regard, where it's less about how they're playing now and more about, like, you don't find 350-plus pound guys that move like they're only 320 pounds all that often.
You're talking about Kennard from Kentucky?
Yes, Kennard.
Yeah, he's someone I want to watch more throughout the days. Like, but he looked just. I was worried about him a little bit because, like, you know, he kind of sloppy with his technique, but he looked like he belonged in the NFL. I think more so than the other guys on the American team offensive line.
I agree, and sloppy technique is okay here, right? This is we need to see that sloppy technique change from Monday through to the end of the week.
Yeah.
Right. That's really the big thing. So having sloppy technique is okay. It's a matter of, does he still have the exact same sloppy technique at the end of the week? And what I thought was interesting is that two guys that did not have a good day were guys I was interested in seeing were Ed Ingram and Marquise Hayes, two inside guys from Oklahoma and LSU. Those guys were getting coached up almost after every rep.
Yeah.
And they didn't really look particularly good in team drills either. They looked okay.
Yeah, they both. Marquise Hayes he just struggled with like just finishing plays. Like, he has that good first pop, but he just struggled finishing plays.
Yeah.
But we can move off the O-line, D-line a little bit and get.
Never.
That's all
Never.
It's all I want to talk about. My Jay Sanders, we talked about those. He not just those one-on-ones and the team stuff. He was making plays, and he was someone I actually watched. He was one of the last guys I watched before I came here, and I was like, I don't know if he's going to be a good player. Like, I don't know if he's fast enough to not have that strength, but he like showed more things here, and it was like, okay, let me go back and re-watch this guy because I was kind of down on him coming in, and I thought he like won the day in the trenches.
He played well. I mean, it's funny because, like you're talking about, our eyes are all in different places. When you talk about edge defense, a guy that comes to mind was he's wearing number 11 out here. His name's Dominique Robinson out of Miami, Ohio. He's a big dude, and when me and the guys I was watching it with pointed him out, he immediately won 2 reps around the edge in 11 on 11. So I'm going to have to go back and check the tape. I mean, it is early in draft season. We don't have everybody fully scouted out here, but it's so fun when you can come to practice and find somebody that you're like, where did you come from? I need to study you more.
And I think Neil Farrell Jr. is definitely
let's save him for the American. Let's save him for the world. Jumping in. I want to get to the quarterbacks separately, and we can throw it to you. Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, and Carson Strong on the national team QBs, and that can kind of lead into some of the skill players. Who impressed you the most out of that group?
So in that group, Kenny Pickett clearly stood out, especially when they weren't playing 11 on 11. Now, this can't be too surprising. The way Kenny Pickett played this entire season when he had time to throw, which was most of the time, he distributed the ball well. Ball came out on time. His accuracy was obvious. I would say Desmond Ridder was the big loser of today. He was the quarterback, kind of like, look, we'll get into it. We'll talk about the American team later. But he was the one that receivers struggled to get the ball from most. And when it comes to wide receivers and defensive backs, I think the defensive backs on this national team are not near as impressive as the ones on the American team. But nevertheless, we came into a weekend here without Jalen Dotson. And so we needed to see which wide receivers among maybe not so great rest of the group, top-heavy group, obviously, with some extreme talent. We're getting blown away out here. But it was cool to see Christian Watson in particular step up and declare himself kind of the alpha dog of the wide receiver group that was left in the American squad. From there, I would say Dobbs had a pretty good day. I saw the Cincinnati receiver that you were talking about. He had a pretty solid day. A couple others definitely showed up to play, but Watson declared himself the guy pretty early on, just like we saw Jalen Tolbert do here in the second half.
We were talking about Pickett, and he definitely looked like the number one guy. We were talking before, though. There was some plays in 11 on 11 where it's like that's sack. Like that's a clearly sack, and you're holding it. Like you can tell it's like damn. I'm trying to get the ball up, but I don't know where to go. So that'll be, it's obviously the red jersey. But he had like a lot of time to throw at Pitt.
Right.
It's like, how does that guy adjust to being drafted by, fill in the blank team that has a bad offensive line and needs a quarterback?
Let me give you a decent example. I'm a Bears fan, right? So we just came out of watching a whole bunch of quarterbacks get described as raw, right? Justin Fields, tons of polish, comes out of Ohio State, and he takes a ton of sacks. I'm talking his entire month of September, 25% of his dropbacks were sacks. Kenny Pickett and the sacks that he took, because it was like 3 or 4 in 11 on 11. That's where I was leading to, is he was accurate and on time in the throwing drills, but once they went to 11s, he was the one giving up most of the sacks. And it's a secret raw trait, if you will, in a lot of quarterbacks that get a lot of help around them in college. We'll have to see how he plays in the game, let alone what happens once he gets drafted.
And last year, it was very clear from day one, Mac Jones is the best quarterback, best thrower of the ball here. I don't know if Kenny Pickett, you can say, is the best quarterback, but he is 100% the best thrower of the ball from both teams.
Right.
I think so.
We'll talk about Malik Willis. He's such a weird case to talk about. So last thing I want to say on the national team, tight ends. I love them all.
Yes.
Trey McBride did a little bit of everything, which is what he does coming in. He's shorter than the other guys, but I thought he looked good. Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin. I was like, I want to watch him block this edge on this play. Did a good job and made some good plays, in indie drills. And then Cole Turner out of Nevada, 6'6", runs really well. But I watched him on a wham block, and I was. It shows that man never lined up as the wide tight end in college. He always lined up wide. Which was the guy that you guys noticed the most, Justin?
I mean, McBride's just the guy that was coming in that I was most excited to see, and seeing him make some plays over the middle of the field too. I was surprised to see. I mean, he's a strong dude. He's a muscular dude, but I was surprised to see. I thought he was taller. So that is a sign, at least for me, that's somewhat surprising heading into today.
But you know what? I'll counter that with, I was shocked at how quickly he got in and out of his breaks.
It was beautiful.
He knows how to play tight end.
The best catch of the day was that pushed off at the end on that. I think it was like a
deep over kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what separates McBride from the pack in terms of tight ends, I mean, I have the name, I call them thumpers. Just guys that get the ball and they're just thumping, waiting for somebody to come out and take out their ankles, and then that's the yards after the catch, and then that's the difference in the play right there. But McBride is not one of those guys he's not a thumper. He's not a guy that's just you're going to dive after his ankles and then he's just going to go down. So he has that athletic profile, has that athletic ability, while also being an inline kind of blocker, and he has that ability, and I feel like that separates him from the pack.
Right. I didn't get the chance to watch McBride in a lot of his blocking drills in practice. I feel like if there's willingness there, right? If he wants to block, you could refine that a little bit more. I know I'm talking to 3 Giants fans, so plenty of nightmares of Evan Ingram when I talk about receiving tight ends. But really, I think it's so hard to find big, strong guys that can break quickly, and McBride looked rare there.
Yeah, I agree.
To finish off on the national team, I mentioned Cole Turner. Worst throw of the day was at Carson Strong on this wide receiver splits the safety. It was the last play of team drill.
Yep.
He was not very strong.
And just put everything into it and only went 50 yards and turned. I think it was a pass interference, though, so, shout out to
It would have hit
Flacco.
the top of Jerry World. I mean, it went way up there.
When he released it, it's like, okay, here's the play we're going to be talking about. Is this Carson Strong throw? And it was,
It's also into double coverage, I might add.
but if he put 10 more yards on it, it's one of those plays where it's like, this is the QB that we need in today's league.
I'm surprised you said Ritter, because every time I looked, we all have a million different eyes. Our eyes are in a million different spots. But man, Carson Strong, every time he threw, he was just disappointed with every result, and I'm like, not fun, not great.
Look, I feel like the trouble there comes from expectations, right?
Yeah.
Desmond Ritter's the one that made the playoffs. Carson Strong is not.
Yeah.
So when Ritter came here, especially once, at least the first 10 throws he had, probably about 4 of them were not on target. Mm-hmm. He's wearing a red jersey. That's not supposed to happen.
Right.
But either way, I don't think either of those two guys are drawing near the eyes that Pickett and obviously the guy we haven't talked about.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the American team. And every time this name gets brought up, Robert and Justin start spinning like a top, throwing out traits and what the guy's good at. Malik Willis, what do you guys think of his first day?
So if I could take out all of the missed throws Malik Willis had, he looked like a beast. I mean, concluded practice with a 35-yard takeoff run, which doesn't matter, but it was 11s, and that's part of his game. He throws the hardest fastball. His accurate balls hit people right in the hands, but he missed a lot of balls out in front and high today.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what happens there, but I definitely think he looked a lot more talented than Howell and certainly Zappy today.
That last play where he took off, was that the only time that he did take off?
Well, it's practice out of the Senior Bowl, so if you do take off, you're ruining a drill. But yes.
Right. No, because that's really the main thing that I was looking for out of Willis this week is, maybe you're not going to make every throw, maybe not everything's going to be perfect, but the drill is designed and the practice is designed for you to stay in the pocket and to make that throw. The magic that Malik Willis has, his escapability, his ability to run, the playmaking ability, that's not necessarily going to be on display here, but that's the point. So can Malik Willis stay in the pocket? So at least as of day one, obviously misses some throws, has a few other days to clean that up, but staying in the pocket and not just running around and not being comfortable, that's a positive sign to me. And also, just even before the team drill, him just throwing the ball on like mini posts or streaks down the field. There's a different velocity. There's a different zip that is on that football. And it's one of the first times we're in person and I'm down below where I'm like, there is a difference there.
The one that I thought stuck out to me, there was a play that he had. I can't remember the receiver that was on the receiving end of it, but he hit a guy on about a 45-yard end zone corner throw that was a nice high-arcing trajectory, which you don't normally see from Willis. He's a fastball thrower. You're talking anything where, in Madden terms, you're either holding the button down or you're tapping it once. None of those lofty passes, right? But to see him hit one of those in a moment like the Senior Bowl with a lot of NFL eyes on him was nice and encouraging, because he's got to be able to do that if he's going to be successful.
And he's the quarterback from our Giants' point of view, and me and Justin talked about this, is convince us to want you. Convince us to want you in this atmosphere that isn't you playing against bad schools, and it isn't you overmatched versus Ole Miss. Convince us to want you. And I think he did more. Like you said, he missed some throws, but I think he did more good than bad today. You can argue that Kenny Pickett had the best QB day, but if it wasn't, it was definitely Malik Willis after that.
Do you think it's hard to judge the wide receivers at all because he throws such bullets? I've seen a couple where they're right at guys' heads and they're dropping them, but at the same time, it was consistently always with Malik Willis. So do you find that difficult to separate what is too hard of a pass and what a wide receiver should be catching?
If the Jets and the Lions coaching staff weren't just throwing bullets at these guys during the agility drills, it would be. But they're throwing as hard as they can. They want to see what these wide receivers can hang on to, which there was a specific play that I know I put on Twitter where it looked like Calvin Austin III, who otherwise had a really good day, short receiver, fun, electric from Memphis, basically just kind of stopped running his route when he thought he got jammed downfield. It looked like an interception,
right?
It looked like an interceptable ball, which, hey, it may have been too far out. I'm not about to say it would have been perfect, but it was hard to tell because Malik put so much gas on it and the receiver wasn't there at the other end. So
I remember that play.
There's definitely some stuff we're trying to figure out here, but I thought there were a ton of those balls like you're talking about where Malik just stapled it to his guy. And you'd see the guy get up, almost look at his hands, make sure that his fingerprints were still intact after the fact. But overall, it's fun watching that velocity.
I want to talk about what we were looking at with his feet early on. So here was my preconceived notion kind of heading into the Senior Bowl, that Malik Willis, and I get this from the QB school, JT O'Sullivan. So I watched his video on what he did on Malik Willis. He did a couple parts on him heading into this season. And Malik Willis has this tendency to kind of bring his feet in a little too close during his dropbacks. I call it, you're clicking your heels and you're doing the Dorothy, there's no place like home. You don't want to do that as a quarterback, at least in my opinion, because when your feet are close together, if there's an opportunity to get the ball, get the ball to your hands, you're not balanced, you're not throwing from your legs and generating the power from your lower body. So I think he had that problem. What were you we were watching some of the footwork stuff just before kind of practice started.
Right, we were watching the footwork drills between the quarterbacks. They happened to be right in front of us. They were kind of doing that footwork drill in and out of pads. I don't know what it's called. It's probably got a name. But you could see a palpable difference between Sam Howell and Bailey Zappi. You could see they keep their wide base the whole time through while they shuffle through. And you can tell also that Malik Willis is working on it because
he's consciously thinking about it.
His first step was bad, and then he fixed it, and then it creeped up here and there, and they made him run it again, and he was much, much better, right? Second time through.
Yeah.
You could tell that he's working on it, the coaching staff is working on it, so that's going to be a big thing. Again, like we said, from Monday to Friday is the difference here for these guys.
Before I take my pants off to talk about Neil Farrell Jr., is there anything else from the skill group that stood out to you?
So I love the defensive backs in this group. I really do. Davion, let me see. the names. There's just this avalanche of names, right? But so Darion Kendrick from Georgia had a great day.
I love
Roger
Georgia
McCreary,
DBs.
I know, right? Roger McCreary, the Auburn DB, looked like the guy out there. I thought Mario Goodrich out of Clemson had a surprisingly good day. I even saw some solid play out of Tariq Woolen, the UTSA, very long, gonna need some time in the development tube. Cornerback had some really nice physical plays out there. Overall, this is a stronger defensive back group, I think, than we get on the national side. There are some players to like out there. The Baylor guys, Jalen Petrie, for his own weird nitro style, come to mind as just JT Woods. But those guys, I mean, they're going to be taken really, really high. And it'll be interesting to see how they compete against guys like Jordan Tolbert. Might have been Jalen Tolbert. Whoops.
Jalen Tolbert, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So O-line, D-line, I remember before the practice when they're warming up, we're talking like, man, this O-line is just bigger and better than the national team. The D-line won the day. You know, those are where the eyes come from. And here's from a guy, I didn't know his name before today. I'm just going to be one of the people I watch. Neil Farrell Jr., the defensive tackle at LSU, not only won every single rep, but he won in dominant, like was embarrassing the offensive lineman in every single, like literally every single rep. And then we watched him on team period. The only time he was shut down was when they were like doubling him or using down blocks on him. Like he's a guy who you said like he's projected 6th round now.
Right now,
like he's
He's
gonna
putting in the work now.
like he was just like every single rep was dominating, and I want to go watch him play versus like the Alabama O-line after this practice.
that's legit. I mean, the tape that I've seen of him, he is a dominant force against the run, and it's about what he can do against the pass rush. Because in his time at LSU, I didn't see him contribute much during the pass rush, but then again, I watched through one game. So I saw him play, I think it was Clemson or somebody earlier in the season, like in the first 3 weeks, and I was like, okay, cool, I've got my impression. That's cool to hear that he just popped off the tape, because that's not somebody you're looking for, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I
just
didn't know.
somebody
I literally had to be like, hey, who was the LSU guy? Who was the LSU guy? Who was like the next guy on the D-line group?
Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah, I'm glad you said
Justin's
that.
going to wet his pants here, but before
was
you
on
go
the other
crazy,
side of the field, and I'm so mad I didn't get to see him. Come on.
There's a couple of days, don't worry. He made people look silly out there. I mean,
He just does everything.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't even know how to say. He's just so fast off the ball too, and he's got a pretty polished set of tools to work with. He's got some pass rush moves. It's not just his speed.
He's got good hands. Like, yeah, he has. I fall in love with pass rushers' hands. What do you do with your hands?
Exactly.
You know, where sometimes I fall in love with a lesser athletic guy because I just love his hands, like a Rashad
swipe.
Weaver out of Pittsburgh last year.
Yeah.
And he just brings everything. There was a spin move where he embarrassed a guy on the inside. He looked like, okay, there's a reason why this guy is as hyped as he is.
Plays like a madman. Was he playing like a madman?
The whole defense, actually, there was a lot of hoopla. I mean, like, after every play, they were not every play.
Braxton Jones, the offensive tackle that we were watching.
Southern Utah.
He was like, okay, he was getting nasty with some guys and had some really good reps. He's the guy that's like, okay, let's go check him out. I didn't know who he was before we got here.
But yeah, I think him and Jermaine Johnson were getting into it after. He was getting into it with a couple
another guy
guys,
too. The guy from Western Kentucky, I forget his Malone. And I think
he like shoved him into a coach.
You know, we talked about before. We're talking about the O-line, like, oh, look at all these big dudes, Cade Mays, Darian Kennard, and those guys I probably want to talk more about as the week goes along. It was like the small school guys that popped your eye. Chris Paul out of Tulsa.
Yeah.
Like, he's not as big, but you could tell he's like just pure muscle at that offensive tackle spot. He had a good base. Like, he looked athletic. Like, he had a good day. He was someone I was excited about coming in. And then a guy like Ed Ingram and Cade Mays really struggled out of LSU and Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah, I was disappointed. Hayes, like you said, he showed on film that he's like a one-pop guy, and a lot of his strength dominated that, and that's not going to work anymore. He's got to work on sustaining his blocks. Ingram was disappointing. But, again, it's between Monday and Friday. He was getting coached up. It's about how he improves. I thought Max Mitchell from Louisiana looked pretty good, and I guess that's a Rob Sale guy. But
he just looks like he's going to be a swing tackle that's going to be like a Mike Remmers type in the NFL forever.
Yeah, but I mean that's a step up for him.
Which if you're a Chiefs or Panthers fan, you're probably like crying about. If you're a Giants fan, like, hey, he filled in for a year, you know.
Do you want to talk about the edge rusher from South Carolina, Kingsley?
Kingsley, how do you pronounce the last name?
I don't know. That's why I was going to make you do it.
Damn it, Kingsley Enagbare. He's another guy who's like, okay,
Enagbare.
Enagbare.
All right, can I be honest? Heading into this, I didn't watch him today. Heading into this, just did not like him. Not at all.
He had some good bull rush moves, and he uses his hands well. I thought he had a good day, but he wasn't as dominant.
But again, we liked this O-line group a little bit too. We thought that these were much bigger, stronger guys. So it might just be that this D-line group is really, really good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the producer note to start wrapping it up.
No, Danny has to flick us off.
Give us the give us the middle. Give us the middle finger.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
We're
Double
being told to fuck off.
Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you tomorrow.